Om Sri Sai Ram, offering my most humble salutations at Bhagwan's lotus feet. न जानामि शब्दं, न जानामि चार्तं, न जानामि पद्यं, न जानामि गद्यं, शिरेखा शदास्या हृदित्योदते मे, मुखान्निश्चरन्तीं गिरश्चापि चित्रम्. I do not know any words, I do not know any meanings, any prose, any poetry. All I know is from the conscious effulgence of my heart, Bhagwan, you are making these words pour forth from my mouth. With this prayer from Adi Shankara, I start this talk paying obeisance to Swami in all of you for such a wonderful lineup of a program, very meticulously planned, very carefully thought, and for giving me and sister the opportunity to reflect our own journey, our own learning in this whole process. Thank you to all the organizers.
With utmost humility, gratitude, and love, I offer myself at the divine reverential lotus feet of our beloved omnipresent Lord, Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, loving Sai Ram to each and every one of you. I'm extremely grateful to Bhagavan for giving me this opportunity, and also very thankful to the leadership of the International Organization Canada and for allowing me to be in satsang with all of you. Thank you so much. And let's begin with Swami's words. Let's hear his wonderful voice.
ಏನು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದರು, ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದರು, ಯಾತಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ನಾವು ಹೀಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ, ಇದರಿಂದ ಫಲಿತ ಏನು, ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಕಾರಣ ಏನು ಎಂಬುದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಮೊದಲು ವಿಚಾರಣೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ.
Whatever actions we are doing, whatever actions we will be doing, we should know first what we are doing it and what for we are doing. These details we should know.
ಮೊದಲು మనం ಪ್ರಶ್ನಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂತ ನಾವು ಮೊದಲು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಂತದ್ದು 5 ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು.
We have to ask ourselves these 5 questions first.
ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ,
why should we do it,
ಎಲ್ಲಿ,
when,
ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಕಾರಣ ಏನು,
what is the reason,
ಯಾರು,
who,
ಇದರಿಂದ ಫಲಿತ ಏನು,
what is the result.
ಈ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಯನ್ನು ನಾವು ವಿಚಾರಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಪರಿಹಾರ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು.
If we answer these questions, then we will be able to solve all the difficulties.
Wow, that was a tall order from Bhagavan. Life is a tapestry woven from the threads of our desires, choices, and experiences. And every decision we make, every action we perform, determines our pattern of life. And also determines the path we tread. To a large extent, we are products of our circumstances. But then we are also very active agents in creating our lives. We choose who we want to be, and the content of our character is determined by actions, decisions, desires, choices, and experiences. And now, in this little video clip that we just heard, Swami is alerting us to the fact that all our desires, choices, actions, and decisions have to pass the bill that he just prescribed. They have to be validated by all these WH questions. Why, what, when, where? But then how do we achieve this goal? How can we make our lives more meaningful, more purposeful? And how can we make those right choices every single time? Or at least most of the times, so that we are the best version of ourselves. Swami very graciously gave us this organization. And He said the only purpose, the sole purpose of the organization is for us to recognize our inherent divinity. That is the mission with which he set up this organization. And many a time, even in the interview room, Swami has said, inner view, not interview. But then, Swami, we are surrounded, we are enveloped by this magnificent, magnanimous, magnetic material world. And this world has so many desires and so many choices for us, right? They're omnipresent all around us. So then, how do we get to you? How do we get to that inherent divinity within us? And these choices and desires empower us. We have an agency over them. We can control them. There is autonomy. So how do we navigate this path? Let's listen to what Swami has to say.
ఈనాడు లోకములో ఎంతమంది శ్రీమంతులు లేరు.
In this world there are many rich people.
ఎంతమంది బలవంతులు లేరు.
There are so many strong people.
ఎంతమంది సౌఖ్య సంతోషములతో తృతూగేవారు లేరు.
There are people of comforts and conveniences.
కానీ అన్ని సుఖములు ఉంటున్నాయి.
They have all comforts.
కానీ మానసిక ఆనందము లేదు.
But they don't have mental happiness.
కారణం ఏమిటి?
What's the reason?
ఇవన్నీ కాదు నీ మానసిక ఆనందానికి కారణము.
They don't give happiness mentally.
నీ స్వస్థానమైనటువంటి ఆత్మస్థానాన్ని చేరాలి.
You should reach that center of Atma, the
అప్పుడే
spirit.
నీకు శాంతి సంతోషము.
Then you will have peace and happiness.
Swami is so clear. He says nothing from this material world, which is so beautiful, so grand, can give you that peace and happiness that can last forever. So we try to fulfill all our desires, but then we fail to reach that spot, that space where we can be happy forever. Let's look at the story of Ramayana. Sita, a princess, she left behind all the riches and then the luxuries of the kingdom and then accompanied Rama to the forest. She was very happy, simple life in the forest, beautiful nature all around. One fine day, she spotted the golden deer. She was drawn to it. She was wishing for it. She chose it. She wanted it. And that was the beginning of the suffering, misery, loss, pain. So nothing in this material world can give us that happiness. And everything in the material world is also very impermanent. It has a shelf life. They're all time and space bound. So there is this constant lack of something in our lives. Though we try to fulfill all our desires, there is discontentment. There is this unhappiness. And there is no depth to our life. There is no real connection with anything from the material world that can give us this lasting happiness. So then we begin to question, what is the purpose of our existence? And how can we get to that spot? So thus begins the journey of Vichara or self-inquiry. So this is one of the paths. Brother, do you want to share any other path that's there?
Sure, sister. Thank you very much. This is, we're starting off on a, note where Swami says, even the mental happiness is so hard to get, because he alluded this feature through his Chinnakatha, his own Chinnakatha, where he says our everyday current state is this way. And he gives a beautiful story where he describes our state of unhappiness that is leading us to the path of Vichara, because we just cannot dive into the Vichara automatically. Our mental unhappiness state that you talked about, sister. So the story goes something like this. So there was a man who was roaming in a dark jungle, and he hears a roar of a lion. He cannot see it, but he just hears the roar of a lion. So he got afraid. So he climbs up the tree to escape the lion. And when he jumped up the tree, he sees a bear sitting on top. On the bottom, there's a lion. On top, there's a bear. Now he does not know what to do. Now he starts to cling on to the branches there and thinking that that is going to, give him some kind of a stability because he's caught between a bear and a lion. In the meanwhile, what he does is he's also drinking honey from the honey web that's oozing out from the tip of the tree. With all this fear, with all the lion, bear, and everything, he's so called enjoying life, but he's really not enjoying the happiness of it. And to top it all, Swami says there's a black and a white rat that is nibbling away every second of that particular root, the branches. So here Swami says the world is a jungle in which a man roams. Fear is the lion that drives you up the tree of samsara. And Swami says, okay, just because to avoid fear, guess what? You go climb up the ladder of whatever name, position, fear, all of these options that we have in our life. Guess what? We are into anxiety, which means now we are bound by one side fear, the other side is anxiety. And Swami says fear is always associated with past. Oh, the dog bite me. Okay, now I'm afraid because the next dog comes in. I'll say because you connect with the past. Fear is always from the past, and Swami says anxiety is always from the future. So we are always living in fear or anxiety. Within these two bounds, we cling on to these ropes called the hope and despair, but technically we do not have that faith or so-called the confidence in God. Now, on top of it, the honey that he's oozing out, he thinks he drinks that, which is called the desires. He's enjoying all the pleasures, car, house, name anything, enjoying all the ice creams, everything. But guess what? With all this, as Swami says in the previous clip, he's not happy with the current state. And this is exactly our current state of man. And there's not a day that I don't think about this story at all, because we're all caught up by fear and anxiety always in our lives. And this is one of the fundamental reasons why we need a guru like Bhagwan, who will drive us away from this fear and anxiety and lead us from the mental unhappiness state that sister was just talking about to the next state. And if we look at, is that the only reason that is making us go into the vichara? Because we just cannot jump into vichara immediately. Is that the only reason? What are the other reasons that we would be going into the inward path? And Swami says in a conversation with Dr. Jack Hislop, who many of you know, he was one of the oldest devotees in the United States. In fact, he asked Swami one time, why do we want the Lord? And Swami gives a beautiful explanation. Swami says it is only pain which energizes us day in and day out. He says only the pain in our lives which finally forces us to ask some deep questions within ourselves, right? To ask, hey, imagine this. If we're enjoying all the ice cream, movies, and all the fun stuff, every day is Christmas for us, why would anybody turn towards Lord? And Swami says nobody in their right minds will never turn towards God, because nobody in their senses, it's finally the suffering and pain, Swami says, finally will force you to question that there is something else besides this misery. In fact, that's what this quote says, because without this, without the suffering, you can never turn inward. So on one side, we see mental unhappiness. On the other side, we see pain and suffering. So there should be a driving force to get closer to God. In fact, Swami said, I can do everything in the world, but I cannot make a devotee love me. This is something that we need to make that effort to go towards him, but he will create circumstances to get closer. But it is us who should take the first step towards him, because we find time to watch movies, we find to do everything, but we never find time to even take that first step towards inquiry. What is this causing us? What is this? As sister said, the fundamental aspect of SSSIO organization is this: to discover ourselves. If we don't make that first step, how is it that Swami will take 100 more? So those are the first two things, right? And now Swami says, yes, now you have created circumstances. In fact, this is a quote that I really take it very close to my heart, because Swami says here, in terms of inquiry wise, and I will read this at the top portion of it. Swami says, a mother was going to make his child, get to bed. And the child says, Mom, can you wake me up when I get hungry? And this is the most powerful quote that I've seen from Swami, where he says, the mother answered, there is no need. Your hunger will itself wake you up. How important is this? Because no matter what I, talk about, God, talk about Vichara, talk about any topics, any spiritual topic to anybody, or sister talks to me, or I talk to sister, it does not matter. At the end of the day, that hunger has to get inside of us. Otherwise, this Vichara will not happen. And the beauty of this quote is he says, God has endowed you with the hunger. He supplies the food as well. All we need to do is connect that hunger with the appropriate food. Because our hunger is so important, because if we don't have that hunger, we can even make every activity a monotonic activity. Because that connection, that yearning, that the sustenance of hunger will be completely absent. So, in order to have that hunger, because each of us should have that hunger, whether it's mental unhappiness or pain, suffering, or the love towards Him, that yearning has to arise within us. That's when we take the first step towards Him. Sister, are there other aspects of where we talk about, in terms of how we get, sustain this hunger? Oh, you're on mute, sister.
All right. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes, definitely. This reminds me of the story of Narendranath Datta. He was very spiritually inclined and into meditation from a very young age. And he would go to spiritual seekers and he would meditate with them. And very often he would ask them this question, have you seen God? And to his surprise, most of them would say, no, I have not seen God. And this was very disappointing to Narendranath Datta. He becomes very restless. He becomes desperate. Indian family, right? They thought the best medicine is to get him married. And so that will solve this problem of restlessness. And Narendranath Datta, still seeking, becomes more desperate, more restless now. And 1882, early 1882, he goes and meets Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar. And then, without much delay, he immediately asks him, Sir, have you seen God? And Ramakrishna looks at him in the eye and says, yes, I have seen God the same way I see you, even more clear. And one can also talk to God. Thus, Ramakrishna opened the doors of spirituality to Narendranath Datta, and later on he becomes Vivekananda. All right, that was wonderful, brother, about spiritual hunger. Now let us look at this etymology of this term, Vichara. Vichara, definitely, it's a Sanskrit term. Like most of our scriptures have all these Sanskrit terms, and most of them are in Sanskrit. That's why it is called as Deva Bhasha. And this Sanskrit word has no equivalent in English. The language of the Sanskrit is very much more than English, and hence we don't have equivalents for most of the words in Sanskrit. So it is made up of two words. One is vi, a prefix, and then the root word is chara, which means to move. Chara, achara, right? And vi is a prefix that usually denotes positivity, something very special, like how we have gnana, vignana, shesha, vishesha, like that. And vichara, as a term, means to think, to analyze, to deliberate, to decide, to inquire, to reflect. All these put together is what vichara is. And it can be loosely defined as the movement of thoughts towards a positive, good direction, which is Godward. And then Swami said, vichara means continuous self-examination. And as we go through this journey of life, can you advance the slide, brother? As we go through this journey of life, we have lots of our goals, right? We have individual goals, and then we have social goals, and then we also have our cosmic goals. And all these goals are predetermined by our dharma. Our individual goals, of course, depend on the profession, depend on the stage of life, depends on our gender, and depends on the roles we play. And they are very closely intertwined with the social goals. Social goals. No individual will unfold in isolation, right? That's why it is said it takes a village to raise a kid. So individual goals are very closely related to the social goals. Our social goals, we try to fit into this community, society we are in. We are engaged in service activities with the society. And of course, we are so benefited by the cultural aspects of the society. And personal growth is often experienced as we grow in the society with our relationships, our interactions, and our engagement with the social elements. And then, of course, we have cosmic goals. The cosmic goals are where Swami says we are all one. We have to respect the elements which are obviously catering to the existence and then this creation. So that is how we have all these three goals through which our life is passing along. And then this is what the scriptures have said. Okay. Then what does modern psychology say? Abraham Maslow, a psychologist, has come up with this hierarchy of human needs. We'll see how there is a parallel between what the scriptures say and what the psychologist says. And I'm referring to this because nowadays we have all the youngsters, and even for some of us, it's good to have this basis so that we understand our scriptures better. It is nice to draw this parallel for better clarification. So Abraham Maslow, it is also called as theory of self-actualization. So at the bottom of the pyramid, you can see the basic needs or the physiological needs of clothing, home, shelter. And then, of course, we have our safety needs. We all have these different kinds of insurances here to take care of us. We have a house, we have a car, earthquake insurance, flood insurance, fire insurance, so on and so forth. And then we have our social needs. We need to belong to a community. We need to belong. We have friendships. We have interactions. We have relationships. We want to be trusting of each other. And then we have our esteem needs. We have to have an identity in the society. We want to contribute something to the society. So we have all these kinds of need. What happens next? So Maslow says, becoming is the nature of a human being. We are always trying to improve and trying to progress, and we are never static. That is when we turn to this last step of self-actualization. And self-actualization and self-inquiry is something, actually, if you look at it from a deeper sense, underlies all these aspects, right? Individual goals, social goals, cosmic goals, or physiological needs, social needs, self-act. So it is a part and parcel of this complete journey. That's why Swami says inquiry is a continuous self-examination. Can we move to the next slide, brother? So all paths are based on the path of inquiry. All spiritual exercises are included in this path of inquiry. Before I turn it over to brother for further expansion on these quotes, I would like to quote Tennyson here, where he says, I would never leave my march forwards, dancing and circumventing with the waves, till I cross this majestic ocean. I will march towards the mountain, turning, twisting, leaping, falling, overcoming the obstacles. I go on and on and on forever. So inquiry never stops. Over to you,
That's
brother.
that's beautiful, sister. Inquiry is a continuous examination. What a beautiful, it never just starts today and ends tomorrow. Oh, yeah, I inquired today. Great. Tomorrow I'm all good. It is a continuous process because, in fact, Swami says by just saying that there's food available in the kitchen, is your hunger going to be relieved? By saying, I have the list of vegetables in the market, can you purchase this instantly? No. Can the darkness of the room be dispelled by just mere news of light? That's not going to be possible. So Swami says that the subtler than body are the senses, subtler than senses are the mind, subtler than than the mind is the intellect, even subtler than the intellect is this atma, which is such a subtler piece that sometimes English is a very funny language because these words can muddy our experience. These things have to be felt because as we talked about this hunger component, right? How do we, occasional thinking of Atma Vichara may not lead to it. Because as sister said, it has to be a continuous process and it cannot have like a fire, like a flower pot level of intensity. Oh yeah, I had 5 days of complete Atma Vichara, sixth day, yep, I'm all good, I'm back to the, regular thing. Things don't work that way. Because Swami says you have to keep doing this over and over. That hunger has to be sustained because creating the hunger is one thing. Sustenance of hunger is even more important because we have to start genuinely. If you look at it, we attach importance to our job, to our duties, which is all good. But at some point, you have to start investing time within inquiring about this, proceeding towards this path, because what appears to you that these are all important may not be important to you eventually based on life circumstances, which will make you to start think, hey, maybe I should invest more time in this. And there are, as sister said, there are multiple methods that with which you can do it. And where Swami talks about is the breath, which is so important. And because he says, even in the pranayama technique, right, where a lot of species, if you look at it, they breathe they breathe faster, and then their lifespan is a lot lesser. The first step in the vichara is to watch our breath. When we keep watching our breaths, the goal is something called what in the modern science, which is called resonant breathing, where all it I'm so reminded of this, where there is a goal of getting to 6 breaths a minute. And Swami beautifully described this in terms of Rechaka, Puraka, and Kumbhaka, which is inhalation, exhalation, and retention. So equal duration in terms of how you breathe in, sustain, and breathe out. So the goal is to make sure to have this level-headed, to have about 6 breaths a minute, which will make your thoughts subside. The more you watch your breath, your thoughts get subsided. And it's easier. What it helps, the breathing technique, what it helps is it helps you to process in the world because we're always, irritated, frustrated, and doing all kinds of things. These kind of watching our breath technique, once every day, it's going to immensely help us even for the increased awareness and shifting our perspective and behavior to keep us grounded. With that being said, right, Swami teaches us very simple ways of how to practice methods of turning inward. Very easily, he says, how do you spiritualize a worldly life? Because he says the discrimination sense and then vairagya, detachment, is the next few steps. But even before you get to this, the most important thing is to develop affection towards the divine. That's the first step. Once you develop affection, he says, then the devotion comes automatic. Once the devotion comes, then it's easier to go to discrimination, to detachment. So he says there's a sequential steps. And in order to do that, the first prerequisite is to make sure that affection towards God is established. And that has to come from us. And in fact, Swami, in an interview with students, he said that internal force has to be automatic, because the inner interest and the internal affection both should be very simultaneous, and the force is automatic towards him. Now, in a worldly example, let's take in our daily life. For example, we do a lot of individual chores. We do, participate in devotional activities in our center. We do a lot of SSC activities. We do service activities. And at the end of the day, we have time for ourselves. The goal here is every activity that we do, be it at the individual level or at the center level or at your own cosmic, at the highest level, the most important thing that we wanted to question ourselves is, are these enhancing my affection, my devotion towards Swami at all? For example, if I'm doing a devotional activity, if I'm singing bhajans, am I just singing bhajans and then moving on? In fact, I'm reminded of an analogy where if somebody says, hey, this is the switch, if I point to the switch with my finger, and everybody should look at the switch as opposed to looking at my finger, because the finger is only going to lead the path to the switch. But unfortunately, we end up spending all our time in looking at the finger, which is pointing towards the switch. Likewise, the bhajans, the service activities, all of these different activities that we have are pointing towards this Atma Vichara, where to identify ourselves, to know ourselves. But unfortunately, we tend to spend more time on the bhajans itself without looking at the end goal. So one of the goals that we try to, as self-audit ourselves is, which Swami calls, for his MBA students, he never calls his MBA as Masters of, MBA degree, but it's more on mind on Baba always, which means, so here is our self-audit that we can try and establish. Instead of doing activities just as an sake of doing activities, can we introspect within ourselves in such a way that every activity that we do from today onwards, we can question ourselves, does this enhance my internal connection and aim on God? I can do, Swami never says go take sannyasa. He says, enjoy the world, be like Janaka, do everything. But as long as you have that internal connection, and that will lead us to the fruit of devotion, which will lead us to discrimination. Sister, would you want to talk about the perfect transition in terms of moving towards discrimination at this point?
Sure. Thank you. Viveka is again a Sanskrit term for discrimination. And like all other Sanskrit words, this word can be broken up in two ways. One is the root word vik, which means to sift, to separate, to discriminate, discern, to judge. And then there's another way based on the sandhi or conjugation, as you call it, into vi and eka. Vi again is supreme, special, distinct, and eka is oneness. The supreme oneness that you attain by discriminating discernment of the real from the unreal. And we have this famous work by Adi Shankara called as Viveka Chudamani, which talks about the oneness of the universe. All right, next slide, please. Thank you. So, basic discrimination, which we all engage in, is right from wrong. Easy, right? Good and bad. Is it worth pursuing or not? And then, is it in the best interest of everybody or not? The higher interest. And then, will it cause suffering or happiness? This is a simple process of discriminating. Sometimes, a variable that will impact this discrimination is time. Sometimes we have a lot of time to make these decisions, and sometimes we do not have. decisions have to be made in a split second, right? So sometimes when time is short, we go with our gut feeling. Some of those decisions may be right, will work out well, but sometimes we will have to make decisions work. Next slide, please. And sometimes what appears very good on the surface when we make the decision may not turn out to be good. And sometimes what we think, oh, this is a compromise or this is not a good decision, will turn out to be good. What should we do? This is another variable that will impact this process of discrimination. So one of the methodologies would be stop and assess carefully and deeply. So we have to pause while we are making all these decisions so that we can really get to the real nature of objects. Actually, this picture that you see is grass. And some of you who are familiar with Meow Wolf, there are museums where there is where the artists talk about the real and the unreal. This is grass that is actually green, which appears green only to a human being. But when you look at it from different lenses, it could appear in different colors. So what is the real nature of grass? There is a grassness to it. Just like you have gold ornaments, you can have plenty of ornaments, but the underlying essence is the gold. Like the clay you have in the different pots, like the wood you have in the different furnitures. So as you look into things deeply and carefully, it can be compared to deep sea diving. The surface appears very calm and nothing is visible from the surface, right? Only when you dive into the water will you know that there is a whole new world underneath, and then you will need a new pair of eyes to look into this new world that you have just discovered. And also, obviously, new questions will begin. Next slide. So we are all living. So what is the commonality here? Science says that we are all living in this huge, expansive ocean of atoms, molecules, and subatomic particles. So all these come together with various forces to give rise to this beautiful, grand, materialistic world, and of which human beings are the crest jewel. They are the crown of creation. But we also are made up of the material and then the non-material. The material is our body, and then the non-material, our mind, our thoughts, our emotions, our opinions, so on and so forth. Next slide. So we are now this body with a non-material aspect to it, and we are also existing in two different states. One is the wakeful state and one is the dream state. So which one is real? Are we material? Are we non-material? Are we the beings in the wakeful state? Are we the beings in the dream state? So Swami explains this with a beautiful story, the story of Janaka. Janaka was a great emperor, wonderful kingdom, a great king, but very much inclined towards spirituality and metaphysics. So as he is working in his kingdom in the courtroom, he falls asleep and then he has this dream. And in his dream, he is defeated and he is banished from his own kingdom. So he's very disappointed, very depressed on the outskirts of his kingdom. And now he's also extremely hungry in his dream. So he's looking for food all around. So he finds there's a congregation and then food is being distributed. So he gets in that line to get some food because he is dream hungry now. So as he gets to the top of the line and the food station, the food is all gone and he just gets the last morsel of food. He thinks, okay, thank God, and let me eat this dream food. But as he tries to eat the dream food, a bird swoops in and snatches that morsel of food. And then he wakes up with a shock. And then he's now totally dwelling on this thought which one is real? Which me is real? The emperor or this depressed person, banished person, this hungry person? Which of me is real? What am I working for? Then the queen is very worried, and then she calls for his preceptor, mentor, teacher, guide, Ashtavakra. Ashtavakra comes and says, "You are neither this nor that, but you are pure awareness," which is a witness to both these states. So we see our body also keeps on changing, right? It's never static. It's not permanent, nor is our mind. Next slide. Where our thoughts are all fleeting. It's a monkey mind. Swami has said that in so many words. It's a monkey mind. Thoughts, opinions, ideas, judgments. Everything keeps changing. Body is changing. Mind is changing. Even our state, whether you're in a wakeful state or a dream state, even that is not permanent. Because when you're wakeful, you lose the dream state. When you're dreaming, you lose the wakeful state. So the real me is unchanging and infinite. Sometimes this thought can be a little unsettling, and then we'll have to revise our previous understanding of whole philosophy of life as we embark on this real me journey. Next slide, please. So Swami says Brahman is the universal absolute in all this. So now that we have discovered what is the real me, does not mean we disregard all the others which are material and non-material as well, because they are the stepping stones which help us to get to the real me. Without that journey, this journey is not possible. And the real me and then the other small me, the small I, has been described various jargon in Sanskrit. It can be called as Purusha, Prakriti, Chetana, Achetana, Nirguna, Saguna, Nirvikara, Savikara, Satya, or Mithya. So this is just the Sanskrit terminology. I'm just sharing so that we don't get confused. So all this is possible. But then, as I said, it is very important to respect even the material aspect of creation. So it is only through that material aspect can we get to the non-material and then the real me. Next slide. And Swami has said, Kali Yuga is the best time to practice Viveka. How blessed are we? And it's wonderful. So we begin our journey in a very simple way, distinguishing between right and wrong and good and bad. And as we go through this process of Viveka or discrimination, discernment, stopping, assessing carefully and deeply, we will arrive at this new me and then the new world. And then the journey from here is very individualistic and each to their own. Next slide. When, by means of this discrimination, the idea that the world is impermanent gets deeply rooted in the mind, all attachments cease automatically. This is the stage of renunciation or detachment, Vairagya. How wonderful it is. All three V's, right? Vichara, Viveka, and now at Vairagya. Three V's will lead us to victory. Okay, over to you, brother.
Very nice. I think this is a sequential staging plan that Swami has already created, nicely, connecting the dots here. So this is great to use discrimination as a tool, a prerequisite for detachment, because detachment on the surface of it, it appears as though you have to renounce everything, you leave, go to Himalaya, stay in a hut. Swami never says detachment like that. Swami says you can be full of love, still get involved in everything, but yet stay detached. And I always wondered, is that even possible, Swami? How is this going to work? You're saying completely be involved in everything. And guess what? Swami, through his, I'm sure many of you have read the Premadhara letters. These are letters, I mean, of profound material. If you have not read Swami's letters, please, I would say, go read those. These are guideposts on advices of how to lead one's life. And whenever Swami talks about detachment, Swami explains so clearly about a lotus. The biggest aspect of a lotus, Swami says, it is born in slime and mud. Okay, and it through the water, it lifts its head up above the water. But the important thing of a lotus, if you see in this picture, it refuses to get wet, though the water is the element which gives its life. So Swami says, man is born out of mud. So, for example, mud and water are super essential for a lotus. It cannot survive without mud and water, which means Swami says, man is born out of mud of past lives. He's now floating in the water of family life. So he says it's very hard to avoid these two. He needs both of them. But just like how the secret, he says, the where he talks about the main secret is without water, the lotus cannot live for a moment. Without mud, it cannot live. And he says the secret of man is it should not touch either of the two. And as Swami says, you be in the world, but let not the world be in you. And this is so important aspect in our day-to-day practical life of detachment. And every time when I, read this, it produces different meanings because you need the mud, you need the water. Guess what? You cannot touch either of them, which is tricky, right? And this is where it gets even more when Swami says, I am neither attached nor detached. What a profound statement this is. He is never attached or detached to. So, this is the state that he wants us to be in. And this appears to be tricky, but it's very simple, the way Swami put it. And I'll narrate a very small incident that happened just a few years ago. And just to show the omniscience of Swami, how he is a sutradhari, how he drove home a lesson for me through this lotus example. Few years ago, I happened to be at a relative's home in the Northeast in the US, and it was around Swami's birthday. I visited their home, and we had bhajans in the previous evening. We had a beautiful set of bhajans closer to Swami's birthday and Thanksgiving in the US and everything. And the next day morning, my relative, my aunt, apparently asked me to go keep Swami's picture from where the bhajans were to upstairs in Swami's room. And I went to go keep the picture there, and I was so swamped by the silence in that room that I couldn't help but just say to my cousin who was standing right next to me, I said, the silence is so captivating that one could do even meditation here. It's so good because downstairs a lot of people were talking and stuff. This appeared to me very, very, very enticing. And as I said that, there was a box that they keep in Swami's room, which had all Swami's papers and Swami's quotes and things like that. And I'm never a fan of going and picking a chit or something like that in the past. But on that day, I was super tempted to go pick what was in there. So I was so, when I got closer, I picked a chit from that second. And guess what? It says, sit and talk with me. And then I was so flabbergasted because I was like, Swami, just now I said the surrounding ambience made me, sit and meditate. And here you are asking me to sit and talk. So, and I came back, just closed my eyes and I said, Swami, this is in the morning around 10 a.m. or something. I said, Swami, since you said, sit and talk with me, I'm just sitting here, not pouring forth any of my requests here. It is just to hear what you want to say. And lo and behold, you were able to hear a very, very clear about the aspect of lotus. All I could see is just a lotus blossoming, blossoming, blossoming. And the message was lotus, love, tolerance, unaffected, like Sai. And I didn't understand. I thought it was my imagination. And Swami kept repeatedly saying, be like the lotus, be like the lotus. And he showed me example. You see how lotus live, where it lives? It's in a muddy place and it's surrounded by mud. It does not matter. And see how pristine, how pure a lotus is. It is unaffected. It is tolerant of the surroundings. It is loving. Bees love the lotus. So he kept giving me all of this, and he drove me a point that irrespective of the whatever you're surrounded by, you can still be detached. Because Swami gives an example, right? Because he says, um, how Vibhishana lived in a very hostile environment. He was surrounded by, Ravana and everyone else. Yet his connection to Rama was always there. How? It's like, a tongue with the 32 teeth, right? Because it's always fighting with the 32 teeth. Because it's so difficult whenever we chew food to be, clear without biting the tongue. So it's so important to be unaffected like the lotus. But this is the message that pretty much came. But the story does not end there, because a few hours later, I happened to go to the Sai Center there, and apparently, when we were, setting up the altar, um, and this person comes rushing up to me, and with the four lotus flowers in on literally on their faces, and then they said, "Sairam Subramanian brother, can I make a request to you? Would you be able to talk today after Swami's birthday bhajans?" And with the notion of keeping these four lotus flowers, as though Swami giving me the clue, I gave you already the content about lotus. You just have to blurt it out. You're just a medium. And instantly I said yes. The person said, I was going to buy some other flowers, and this person kept asking me to get these lotus from him. So I purchased lotus flowers. And here is Swami, who's a Sutradhari, who's trying to give the same content. And the person said, can you speak for 15 to 20 minutes? And guess what? The content that Swami gave was exactly that. Exactly 15 to 20 minutes of content is what he gave. And without any hesitation, because it is what he gave. And just to show that we're all just the mediums of how he wants to convey certain thing, just like how in this talk that sister and I are both conveying what he wants us to get best from it. Now, at the end of it, I said, and there are a couple of people who came up and said, my answers to my problems yesterday or day before, whatever, that's solved through Swami. Thank you, brother. So here I am trying to see the Sutradhari plan of how he orchestrated the whole thing of a lotus. All he said was, be like a lotus. And if you see, if it's even possible, how is this even possible to be unaffected? How is it even be possible to be loving, tolerant? Because it's very difficult, because the outside world, we're bombarded with all the different aspects of it. But Swami gives another clue here. He says there is something called neti, which is not this. This is not, this is not. So he says detachment comes as like an peeling of onions. I'll just narrate a very small incident, short incident. There was a king who went to a monk, and he said, Monk, I'm so interested in knowing about God. And then the monk said, Oh, you want to know about God? Why don't you, he gave a piece of paper and pen. He said, Can you write about your name, yourself, about details about yourself, everything? And he said, Here's my name. Here's my kingdom, and here's this. He said, I just told you to write about yourself. This is a name about yourself. This is all associated with you. I said, write about yourself. And then he says, um, your name, if you kept a different name, would the I-ness in you change? The monk asked. Then the king said, no. And then the monk asked, you are a king now. When you are young boy at 10, is the I-ness going to change between now and then? He said, no. Then those are going to not change. That's good. Imagine if I change my name from Subramanian to, you know, Muruga or something like that. Is my I-ness going to change? That's not going to be true. So he started to peel the onions. He says, in your kingdom, if you become a beggar, would something in you change? No. So likewise, he started to peel onions. One is, at youth, at adult, at old age, will you change? And he says, if your job changes, if your education changes, imagine if I move from one state to another, one country to another, if I finish my bachelor's to a master's, if I switch jobs, these are all transitory, these are all changing. He says, is that you? He said, no. Then in that case, when he started to peel onions, he says, if this is all not you, then what is you? Then the king said, I don't know. He says, without knowing yourself, how can I introduce you to God? So he was going on a quest to identify who he was. And Swami goes on to say, you're not that body. You're not the senses. You're not the intellect. You're not none of these. Now, he also says in deep state, right? Because you're not in sleep, awareness, and deep sleep. None of this change. He says your I-ness always remain. And the next thing which Swami famous in he always uses, you're not one but three. The one you think you are, the one others think you are, the one you really are. So he says the one you think you are is how the world puts you into delusion, right? Because you think you're obsessed with your individual personality. Hey, this is what me, I am so and so, I am this, I like this, I like this is all you put a surrounding veil around ourselves, thinking that that is you. It's like in work, they do a self review at the end of the year. You write about yourself, but then your manager writes something about yourself as well, what his projection of you. So both are not you, because the one others think you are, basically what it shows is, you know, others might say you're great or you're not so great. The world will change all the time. Because if you start to peel onions like this, all you know is all of these are not you. Then Swami says, if you remove, it's not about acquiring things here in detachment. It's about shedding your personality, shedding about others' opinions about you, shedding about this body attachment, shedding about your old age, young age. Irrespective of what it is, then who are you? So approaching towards that process, then automatically, when that identification with the body weakens, the effulgence is automatic. You do not need to do anything. So Swami says that is already within us. It's not that you need to acquire something. It's more of shedding of all of these. The more you shed, the more you see the effulgence. And this practice needs to come for a long period of time. If not now, when would we start to embark on this process? And on the 100th year, this is a perfect year to even reflect, ruminate over exactly that message. And that's exactly what we wanted to conclude here. And I want to just conclude with one short story here. um, this is very pertinent to our day-to-day lives because in Buddha's life, um, many of you know Ananda, who's his cousin. When Buddha was about to shed his mortal coil, Buddha said he had all his disciples around him. And Ananda, at that time, he started to weep. Then Buddha and all his disciples they said, Ananda was with you all his life. How come you are weeping? And Buddha heard this and he says, how does the spoon know how to taste the soup? It's important because the spoon which is dipped into the soup many, many, many times, it could be there for 100 years, but it can never taste the soup. But when the soup hits the tongue, even instantly, that second, the tongue can taste the soup. So, so it's like Swami asking us our own choice. Do you want to be a spoon or do you want to be a tongue? Because if you are a spoon, we can be with Swami. We can say we are associated with Swami for 100 years. Yes, we were associated with Swami for several decades. But if we are a spoon, we can just take his message. We can never taste it. Or in other words, our prayer should be that please make us the tongue so that instantly we taste your message, we start to implement these. And this should be our prayer collectively. Sister, anything that you would like to add, sister, on top of this one?
I think that's just beautiful, brother. I think we can stop here if we are all done, and we can move forward with the Q&A. And we have a beautiful slide here. Swami going back into his room. Lovely, brother. Thank you.
Om Shri Saram, everyone. My name is Brother Harish. First, I'd like to thank Brother Subramanian and Sister Lakshmi for your wonderful talk. Very inspiring, very thoughtful. So I guess to go to the questions, I guess first, Brother Subramanian, I just want to start, I think, with your story from Chinnakatha, how you mentioned about fear, anxiety, despair, and desires, what we have in this life. Can we ever escape those, or will it always plague us?
Um, so interesting you asked that, brother. In that story, Swami continues to say, you see the fear, you see the anxiety, you see all of these plaguing us, right? He says the guru comes in the form of, he comes with a bow and an arrow and choose the lion and the bear and takes the fearful man with him, holding his hand to the rest of the jungle. Because Swami says this life is a jungle, and clearly, with the help of Bhagwan, that we should be able to get rid of this fear and anxiety. Because even if there is fear and anxiety, we have to, like Swami says, right? When you turn on the light in a dark room, the darkness always is there, but the light superimposes on top of the darkness that you're unable to see the darkness because the light is superimposed. Same way, even if we have fear and anxiety, with Bhagwan by our side, by doing good things and being connected to him, I don't think that'll plague us, because keeping the faith only with Bhagwan holding our hands throughout the way. Sister, you want to add anything specifically to this one?
Yeah, definitely. I think Swami in some discourse gives an example, like when you have that inner connection with Bhagwan, and like how brother mentioned, holding his hand. If a scorpion were to bite you with the prayers and with his grace, it'll be only an ant bite. It'll not be the bite of a scorpion. So that is how you can do. You can do even your self audit for that matter, and definitely, brother, as long as we have body consciousness, it's extremely difficult to escape this from a practical standpoint.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think also we just have one more question from that Chinnakatha story as well. You mentioned, I think the rat is the hopes and desires. Usually we associate with hope with optimism and these good qualities. Is then hope a bad thing? Is that something that we have to remove, or is that still okay to have as a quality?
The rats there, Swami signified as day and night. That's why he has black and white. So he says the time is ticking away, day and night, because while the man hangs out from the branches, the rats, because your time on earth is going away by the minute, because we're always plagued by fear and anxiety and hope and despair and everything. But the time on earth is also limited, because that's the way Swami signified with black and white rat, day and night, day and night. That's what he signifies. Time is moving away. Sister,
Yes.
anything that you want to add?
Yes, definitely. From a Chinnakatha standpoint of view, time is linear, but from a cosmic standpoint of view, time is cyclical. It's not linear. We can rise above that even.
For sure. Yes. Thank you so much. I think this question is also for both of you as well. I think someone's asking, are the 9 paths of devotion connected to the path of self-inquiry, Vichara Marga? Or can they be connected?
Yeah. So the 9 paths of devotion, right? Interesting. Um, in fact, even the 9 point code of conduct or 9 paths of devotion, everything is bhakti marga, karma marga, or jnana marga, any path that we take, everything is leading to the same Atma Vichara. For example, Mother Teresa, who is on a service path, she's not devotional, or is Kabir not knowledgeable, or is Tyagaraja not service oriented? So the Adi Shankara, who's Jnana Marga, he's devotional too. So all of these, whether it's 9 point code of conduct or 9 paths of devotion, in my humble opinion, all of them are intertwined. In fact, Swami said all of these paths are all devotion based, because wisdom, um, even the paths here that you talk about, there is various stages there that is leading to the Atma Nivedanam,
Vedanam,
which is the
right.
last step. So it's the leading step is basically whether we progress one from one to another is more important, but it's all connected. One leads to another. Servitude, the servitude is also service, that is also devotion. Jnanam is also service, devotion. So everything is twined, in my opinion, brother. Sister,
Yeah, definitely. And also for the Navavidhi Bhakti, Swami has given stories for each of these 9 paths.
Right.
Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Every single thing Swami has given example from the scriptures where they have reached God. So any path, that's why he says it's a continuous process. Atma Vichara is a continuous process, and it underlies everything we do. It depends on you whether you are doing it from a physical standpoint or whether doing it from an inner divine standpoint. It depends on us how attached you are attached with the
Right.
body. Then you are thinking, oh, this body is going here, this body is going there. Okay, then Swami, okay, it's your grace, I'm here, your grace, I'm there. So it just depends on how we think. And the way you think, that's how the world will reveal to you.
Right, right. Are we the doer or the witness? That's what we have to think for
Absolutely.
sure. Yes, thank you. Thank you also, Brother Subramanian. Um, I think also this also touches, I think both of you touched on this point as well, but you mentioned that the path of Vicharamarga is continuous. So I think someone was wondering, how do we know we are making progress towards realizing the Atma? Is there a way to tell? Is there like a metric or an objective or some way to tell that we are making progress in the right direction towards realizing it?
sister, you want to go for it?
Sure. Yes, self audit is introspection, right? You go within yourself and see, oh, where am I? What am I doing here? So, one of the methods, which I'll speak from a practical standpoint, brother, that's what I've been doing, like the frequency will reduce. The frequency, number of desires will reduce. So that is how you self audit yourself. How many times am I getting angry? How much time is it taking for me to recover from that anger? Previously, I was getting angry for 5 minutes. Now it's only for 1 minute. And my recovery is just quick 30 seconds. So I think that is the way we can self audit ourselves. And even nowadays, when I talk about my own self, I live in a multi generational family. That's the best testing ground, right? I have a grandson, I have a daughter who is a young adult, I have my husband, I have my mom. you know so, and another approach is to pause. Learn to pause, stop and assess. Learn to pause. The minute you pause, you will find the two pronged within your own head. You can just burst and then be yourself, your worldly self, or you can just say, oh, let go, let me stick with my inner peace. And then you will automatically see that that agitated mind will automatically calm down and it just vanishes and disappears. But we should be able to do that. Even that takes practice, brother. It's always not possible. 6 months I can pass, seventh month I'm my own old self. So it's like a roller coaster ride. But then with Swami's grace and constantly, going to the center, engaging in these activities, it's possible. We have him as our anchor. Sairam. Brother?
Yeah, I think Swami usually gives this example. When you leave from Bangalore, how do you know if we're going towards Puttaparthi? He gives the example. If I'm going away, I would know that I'm not going towards Puttaparthi. So some of the things, there are certain milestones that you see. The most important thing, Swami says, the more inward you turn, your paraspara prema will improve, meaning the love for everybody will be uniform. And there will, because paraspara prema is not the, it's the prema within all the people, not just A to B, B to C, but it is through Swami. So my connection with Harish is, okay, I know Harish because through Swami. I know Sister Lakshmi through Swami. So my love for each other through Swami will increase, will not be like, okay, today I'm upset at this person, tomorrow. So that's the biggest sign of, in my opinion, to see how this love for people grows to over time, because it's the same Atma that lives within Brother Harish and Sister Lakshmi as well. But it takes time, as Sister said, to practice that, because Maya is so strong, is very delusional, to get into the frustration and all of this, whether we get either extremely too attached to somebody or we get frustrated with somebody. Neither of these extremes, Swami says, is a sign of Atma Vichara's endpoint. So the metric is, how do we increase the love for each other every day? Because that is a sign. You can know in the top of your heart, are you bound by compassion? Are you bound by love? It will float, as opposed to constantly complaining about person A, B, C, D all the time. Imagine those are not the values that Swami would want in a person who is already turned inward.
Thank you, Brother Subramanian, and thank you, Sister Lakshmi. Yes, definitely good, insightful thoughts to think about. So thank you so much. I think the next question. So, we talked about the material world and immaterial things, but I think, in North American society, North American culture, one of the things that's prioritized is career growth, and saying you have to move up the ladder, and as your needs increase, you have to increase your income as well. Some people also do investments as well on the side with their income as well. So are those bad things or things we should avoid in relation to the path to self-inquiry? Or if they're okay, then is there like a limit to it?
I'll take a stab at it,
Yes.
Sister, and then
Sure.
so Swami has always said excellence in what you're doing. Swami never said go live in a hut, start begging. No, he never said. He said excellence in what you're doing. If you are the husband, be the best husband. If you are the son, be the best son to your parents. If you are a daughter, be the best daughter in your family, right? So in every role, do the role to the fullest extent. That also includes being an employer. Because he says only duty is your, that's the level of thing that you have. Because beyond that, if it comes to you or not, that's not in your hands. Swami never said don't aspire, because you have to work hard. You have to do your dharma of working hard, but not by bad means, but by royal means of working hard. But if that turns out For example, because I worked hard, I lost some money. Do I sit and brood over it? Then I'm attached to it. That's not what Swami wants. But he never played down the effort perspective, because he says you put in your 100% effort with the attitude, as he said, the aim should be on God, the every internal connection to be established with him, so that the effort should be fullest possible. He never undermined the effort that we're supposed to make, especially in the outward world, because we are supposed to act. We are supposed to not take bhajanamalas and keep doing bhajans every second. No, we're supposed to work in the society. We have to be action oriented. It is so important to be in the world, but let not the world be in you. Don't get caught up, is my understanding of what Swami says here. Sister.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to repeat what brother said, but I'll tell a short story to that effect. So what you're asking basically is Purusha and Prakriti, is the material. Yeah, right. Should we give importance to one and forget the other? That's the basic thing. So Totapuri was the spiritual master for Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He was an Advaitin, only was believing in Brahman, supreme absolute consciousness. He said this Prakriti is nothing, and he was also called as Digambar Swami. He even refused to clothe himself. Digambara means one who roams without any clothes on. Okay, so after he initiated Ramakrishna into Nirguna Parabrahman, one day he has a stomach upset. Okay, and then he thinks, oh my God, this body consciousness, it's just bothering me, stomach pain. He'll say, I'll drown myself in Hooghly. Hooghly is the river that goes by Dakshineshwar. Ganges is called as Hooghly in West Bengal. Okay. And so he walks into this Hooghly. He says, oh, I'm just going to drown in this and shed my body because it's useless now. Prakriti is useless. Okay. All this material wealth, material grandeur is useless. So he walks. What happens is, to his surprise, he lands on the other shore. Not at a single spot was the riverbed, was the water in the river able to go over his knees. And that's when he realizes that there is a lot of power even in this material world. And for the first time, he enters the temple of Mahakali. Till that time, he never worshipped Devi or Prakriti or the material world. So in addition to what brother says, so equal importance is there for both. How you approach it, having God behind every single thought. Because Swami also said, right, you have to blossom to your full potential. What's the point of this? What's the purpose of this life, right? But never be attached to anything. Don't get disillusioned by this world and don't think that's the end. That's not the end goal. It's not the end. It's only a means to get to divinity. Sairam.
Thank you both. Thank you both. Yes, definitely helpful answers for sure. Thank you so much. Um, okay, yes. So our next question. So Brother Subramanian, I think this is going back to your story on your speech for Baba's birthday at that center. And Sister Lakshmi, you can chime in on this as well. Very inspiring story, brother. I guess the question was, so like, we try to be like the lotus in those similar situations, but we get thoughts from the mind that sort of demotivate us, like saying, I can't do this, or what am I doing, right? Or, will I have that? So I guess maybe from your experience, if you can share as well, but how can we overcome those negative thoughts, even when we try to be like the lotus and those thoughts come? How can we overcome them?
So, so the light darkness example, right? Because it's so important. Again, I'll reiterate that this light darkness example from Swami. He says the darkness always exists, like the negative thoughts. If we focus on the negative thoughts, yes, they will exist. But if we do good actions, satkarma, sadachara, and all our actions and every thought, if we fill with goodness, like how we turn on the switch, the light is on top of the darkness. Yes, the negative thoughts will exist, but you know what? With the good things, with the good behavior, good thoughts, you will superimpose the negative with the positive more and more and more. In fact, the bad things will automatically come out, because that's the first thing that will come out. Even, in fact, at every point of time when they churn the the ocean, the only the poison came out first. But as sister said, that's not the end. It's just the beginning. When it churns, when the poison comes out first, do not stop it. Even with this Atma Vichara, we might know that we are making one step forward, two steps backward. In fact, the bhajan says, "Ek pag aage, do pag piche. Tum tak kaise aaye." How did I reach you, Bhagwan? When I do one step forward, two steps backward, because we're always operating in minus one, plus one, minus two is always minus one. So that does that mean we're always going backward? No, because when we keep doing it, His grace is more important here. With His love, with His grace, and with our steadfast prayer to Him, and by doing good things, the bad things, the negative thoughts are bound to disappear in the light. So it's more important we focus on the light rather than the darkness. The darkness still is there in the room. Just because the light is turned on does not mean the darkness is gone. That's my humble opinion. Sister, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll not repeat again what he said, but let me get into the mind control. Control of the mind, negative thoughts coming in is kind of mind control. How do we do that? So there are different levels of mind. The first one is called as mudha. Mudha means a lazy mind like a donkey. The second is called as the monkey mind. Shipta keeps jumping from one thought to other thought. Positive, negative, positive, negative. Did I do this right? Like that. Third is called butterfly, vikshipta. Goes and sits a little bit, gets some honey, and again flutters all around. And then you come to this mind called ekagrata. That is the focus. So it is more of mind control. And finally, the last step is niruddha, where there is extreme concentration. Vivekananda talked a lot about this, and he was able to reach to the stage of ekagrata as he traveled with Ramakrishna on his journey. So it is more of mind control, and we'll all go through these phases, positive, negative, and of course, developing a positive attitude to control our thoughts. Sadhana. Sadhana.
Perfect. Thank you so much, both. So our next question is, how do you deal with those who argue with you to antagonize Swami's teachings?
I'm reminded of a story that Swami used to say to students. Once he asked, for summer vacation, he asked, "What are you going to do, when you go back to your homes?" And every student said, "Oh, I'll do, service Swami. I'll do bhajans. I'll participate in samiti activities." Swami listened patiently, and he gave a story. He says, once upon a time, there were a set of people who came back from Burakatha. Burakatha is a dance type song. And there were a group of people who came by, and it was pitch dark. This was back in olden days. Then there is nothing, and they couldn't find a way. And it was pitch dark, and there were dogs barking on one end. And then they said, "Okay, the dogs are barking this side. Let's go this way." And then while the dogs were barking, the dogs started to bark on the other side. And they said, "No, no, no, this could not be the way. Let me go to the other way." And they went to the other way. And as they were doing this, they lost again the way. And they came to a intersection where they saw a huge lamppost, which just gave light. And they said, "Okay, now I'm able to see clearly." They went. And the students were wondering, Swami asking this question, what am I going to do for summer versus the Burakatha? How do these two correlate? And Swami says, I want you guys to be like the light and not like the barking dogs. In other words, you have to exemplify by the way you live. By when they see you, they should be able to think of the good actions and who inspired this. They should be able to see Swami rather than, arguing with people about this and that. Swami said the light's job, it did not say go this way, go that way. All it did was its job of shedding light. The light itself provided, there were no words spoken. So likewise, if our behavior, if our actions are good, automatically the argument need not even happen. Sairo, sure, sister.
Yeah. And I remember Swami created a picture of his own image Remember that beautiful picture where you have Swami talking to Swami. So that is the other answer that Swami gave, that there is Swami in the other person also. Maybe it is a testing for you. You look at the Swami in the other person, forget the walk, forget what is coming out of his mouth. So you see Swami against Swami. Try to see Swami in that person. And that's why in the interview room, he created a picture. That's picture, there's some name given to that, Advaita picture or something like that. I'm sure all of you are familiar. I'm just describing it here. Saira.
Thank you both. Yes, for sure. Seeing Swami and all the omnipresence of Swami, like you said. And I think, brother, you also alluded the love for all beings, right? So I think that's what we have to measure in our path to self-inquiry. So thank you so much. I think our last question for the night or evening, depending on where you are. Could you suggest some simple exercises we could do every day to practice reflection, discrimination, and detachment?
Sister, maybe you want to start with discrimination, and then we can, that way we'll go around, and then
Well, given my philosophy of thinking, I think we have provided a big overview of things. And this is very individualistic, and it depends on our individual level of how we have connected with Bhagavan and what state of discrimination. Maybe just start with the simple. Every single action, be conscientious. Am I doing this right, wrong, good, bad? Just like how I said in my presentation. I would just leave it at that, brother, because I think everybody should find their own path,
Right.
particularly when you get to that real me. It's very individualistic, and but that they're the guideposts, through which we can reach wherever we want. And Swami is there for us. Okay, Saira.
Yes, for sure. Thank you,
beautiful.
sister.
So I think I echo Sister Lakshmi on this one. But one thing that comes to my mind is every time when Swami does a grand event, or it could be a big, a small, whichever it is, the next minute he never talks about it. He moves on to the next one. I've never, at least I'm sure many of you who's in the call who can attest to it, he will never say, wow, yesterday's thing went well or debut, because not going back to the past. And also it's so important that if we start to implement that, how did this go? How was that? It's so important that we try to dwell in the past. So that's one thing, that trying to see how we can detach quickly from that action and not, it's very difficult. But I think that's something that as a sadhana, as sister said, it's all individual sadhana. The other thing is holding on to my own ideas. For example, it's so important because when you're super good in something, let's say, for example, Brother Harish is good in painting and he's the best painter. And if people come to you and say, Brother Harish, there are 50,000 mistakes, Harish, in your painting, because you consider that to be good, because you're so attached to the I-ness in you, because you're an excellent painter. When somebody criticizes you, it's very hard, because by excellence also comes the attachment. So maybe to be conscious of dividing these two, excellence is one thing, but I'm not attaching to reinforcing. It's all, again, Swami never said this for one time, right? He kept repeated for people like us, that for me specifically, I should say, because it's very hard for me to enter my head, that it takes time to build that. So I think if we start with little things, to be conscious of it, because we're all aware coming to Swami's fold, hearing Swami's thing, but I think we forget. And this is why we need Bhagwan's words, and then to ruminate that, to keep, hitting. It's not like, it's not that we don't know what to do, but we don't do what we know. That's the problem in our life. So, Sairam.
For sure. Thank you so much, brother. I think this concludes all of our questions for this session. So thank you again, Brother Subramania and Sister Lakshmi, for answering all our questions and taking the time to be with us today. Yes, I will hand it over to Auntie Preeti for the things.
Yeah, but I would like to thank each and every one of you. It was so wonderful. Brother, the discussion is what is the key. And I think the questions were just wonderful. I really want to thank each and every one of you. Really enjoyed answering those questions. You know, it's easy to sit and talk, but the questioning and the answers that Swami helps us with, I think that is the key to learning. Saira.
Yeah. Sairam, and I would like to acknowledge the same as well, because as she said, right? Because you never know how Swami plays through each one of us. And I'm so impressed by the meticulous planning that you guys did per minute. And I hope, sister and I, we did justice to the time also. And really, really well planned, well organized across the country. That shows your dedication towards Swami. And let us all pray to Swami that this collective journey continues so that we can realize Him. That's with our end goal. Jai Sairam.
Swami, please accept my loving pranams as I place myself at your divine lotus feet. Bhagwan, thank you so much for providing us this awesome opportunity to be in the company of your sevaks, Sister Lakshmi and Brother Subramanian. This evening was the first of the 3-part webinar series on becoming to being. You truly delivered an inspiring, educational, and very sincere session this evening, so engaging. You set the stage, truly set the stage for the next 2. As you took us through self-enquiry, discrimination and detachment, namely Vichar, Vivek and Vairagya, the 3 V's leading to the 4th, which was victory. It was very beautifully articulated. You took us through the self-enquiry as decisions, desires, choices, actions, that these have to pass the bill. They have to be validated by questions which Swami poses to us. Why, what, where, when? You also shared mental unhappiness leads to vichar. And it is good for us to do that vichar. You elucidated very beautifully with the story of Ramayana. You also shared a chart, so simple to say how fear relates to past, anxiety to the future, hope and despair as the current, and desires. It was very beautifully elucidated. You also talked and reminded us hunger for God. Always hunger for God, for He will supply the food also. You told us how vichar is movement of thoughts towards God. That's what we need to aim. You took us through self-examination with Maslow's hierarchy, and more so for the young adults and the techie people who can understand the pyramid of Maslow. You made it so relevant to each and every one on the call. Amazing. You talked about investment of time in self-enquiry, how important it is. And today I also learned a new terminology of resonant breathing. Thank you, Brother Subramanian. You also said, touch the base, ask ourselves, are my activities enhancing my affection to God? You talked about Swami saying MBA as mind on Baba, always. Amazing. You took us through Vivek in a very simplistic manner. Stop, assess, carefully and deeply. And you shared the story of Janaka. You also talked about Purusha and Prakriti. You took us from Vivek to Vairagya, very simply, easily, with your examples and your knowledge, your experiences, your learnings you shared with us this evening, which made it so sincere and be able to take it. It was palpable for me to hear you this evening. You talked about detachment in such a simplistic manner. Bhagwan's words of saying, I am never attached nor detached. The beautiful example of lotus, the acronym LOTUS now has a deeper meaning for me to say love, tolerance, unaffected like Sai. Thank you for sharing. I have taken some beautiful nuggets like all of the others who were on this evening's webinar. You talked about Neti, what Swami says about Neti, what truly it means. Shedding it all, shedding it all. You shared your experiences. You talked about Vivekananda. You talked about Buddha. You also said the little Chinnakatha about the spoon or the tongue. So let the tongue taste the sweetness of our beloved Bhagwan as we heard his words through you both this evening. And truly, it is indeed a learning, and I'm sure everyone took messages home as I did on all the three nuggets of this evening's offering to Lord on this webinar of Becoming to Being. Thank you so much. And we are solely indebted to you both for giving us that taste this evening of Vichar, Vivek, and Vairagya. And then answering of the questions was, I would say, the icing on the cake. You answered the questions so relevant. The questions were also very mindfully brought forth, and I think you did full justice to them by answering them to the best for our understanding. We are really, really grateful, not only to you, but our beloved Bhagwan. He chose you both to be here amongst us. He also gave all of us the opportunity, the strength to be here with you this evening and be in his presence most of all. It has been an amazingly uplifting evening, not only for me, but I am attesting and saying it with love and humility for everyone on this call. Thank you once again. And I would not like to miss my dearest SSC children who also spoke so beautifully, and also to the organization, the organizers, especially Brother Sridhar, Arti, and Rajesh, and our young adult Harish, and the MC, all of you, along with Nitin, Brother Nitin, and his team, who made sure that the entire program was delivered online in a seamless manner. So with all of that, thank you so much. And once again, we thank Bhagwan for being with us this evening, sparing his time to be with us. And on behalf of Brother Siva Nataraja, the president of the Sri Sathya Sai International Organization Canada, myself and the entire team, we sincerely thank you. Please accept our heartfelt thanks from all of us to you. Thank you so much.
Sairam.
Sairam. Thank you.
My loving pranams at the golden lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan, the Chancellor of the universe, who is beyond time, space, and is our loving Father, Jai Sai Ram. I am absolutely speechless with what we have heard this evening. And there's one thought that keeps on going in my mind, and is the quotation is, I could do everything in the world, but I cannot make a devotee love me. What profound words that were shared with us this evening. On behalf of the devotional wing, I would now like to mention our second national project for this year. And we all know what that project is. It is Sing His Glory. And wow, we have been singing His glory. I am so proud to let our fellow singers know this evening that we have 192 families who are participating across Canada in this program. And as of 9:54, I'm seeing here in Toronto, we have reached the grand total of 81,029 bhajans. We are not there yet. We are not there yet. But we shall be there with Bhagwan's grace, maybe in a month or two. So we want to clear that 100,000 and give our beloved Bhagwan even more pearls of love. We want to surpass the 100,000. And I urge you all to share our beautiful national program with fellow devotees at your center. The registration is still very simple. Visit our international site, go on to the devotional wing, and you will see our second national project, Sing His Glory. Let us surpass 120,000. Wouldn't that be lovely by Bhagwan's birthday? We could do this. We could do this. So, Brother Sridhar, next time let's go for 200,000 when we set the next target. So that is something that we could do in the future. Let us get to 100,000 bhajans. This is a good habit. Singing a bhajan a day enlightens our soul. So let us continue to sing His glory. Let us love Bhagwan even more, because as Swami said, it is up to us to love him even more. And on that note, I would like to thank the speakers once again. Fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We will now offer Aarti to Bhagavan.
जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्ति महेश्वर ओम जय जगदीश हरे शशि भजना श्रीकरा सर्वा प्राणपते स्वामी सर्वा प्राणपते आश्रित कल्पलटिका आश्रित कल्पलटिका आपदान्धवा ओम जय जगदीश हरे माता पिता गुरुदैवं मरियन्तयु नीवे स्वामी मरियन्तयु नीवे नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नागेन्द्राशयन ओम जय जगदीश हरे ओंकार रूप ओजस्वी साई महादेवा सत्य साई महादेवा मंगल हारति अंधको मंगल आरती अंधको मंदर गिरिधारी ओम जय जगदीश हरे नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा शांति शांति शांति।
जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।
समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु शांति शांति।